All right, number 21, leadership without guilt. So 20, 21, and 22 were all running together a little bit. And one book if you're like kind of getting deeply intellectual on this thing, here's a great book for you, or a great author to read, Robert Fritz. Robert Fritz, The Creative Process. Amazing books he's written, right? And the interesting story with this gentleman is that he was a professor at Boston Conservatory. So he dealt with artists, musicians, people who created beautiful things, right? But what he noticed was they weren't consciously competent. So the creative process is a creative process, right? But they weren't consciously competent of exactly how they did it, okay? So if they made a beautiful piece of music, a beautiful piece of art, they didn't understand how they did it, and so they couldn't then replicate it in like a business or a relationship or getting fit. Does that make sense? And he had in a very interesting way, he really studied this and he really got insight on what the creative process was. So it has to do with structural tension, right? Up here, we talked about it a bit. You can't pour your life's passion into a compromise. So it's like we need to know exactly what you want and that it's something worth fighting for. Okay, and down here we're going to talk about having honest and accurate feedback. But first, one of the issues with network marketing is that you're talking about an all-volunteer army. So to do well in network marketing and not to make yourself and other people miserable, some people do this wrong, right? You've got to have high leadership skills. And guilt and shame and pressure are very low energetic issues, and it's not the way you want to build business or life, and no one wants to be on the receiving end of that. So when you have a team that started off super excited but they're not doing anything anymore, it's like, how do you have a conversation with people and get them to refocus without putting pressure on them? Well, you better know why they started in the first place. Like if Bob's like, my kids go to school with a bunch of hoodlums, and I need an extra $600, I need an extra $1,000 so they go to private school so they don't end up in jail. Like, cool, right? So 2 months later, Bob's not doing it, right? So I have to be able to have a conversation with Bob. No guilt and shame, right? Okay, Bob, you told me that you wanted to build this business so you could put your kids in private school, right? But right now, we're not really getting to where we're not taking the type of action you need to do, right? So tell me, just be honest with me, is this still important to you or have you changed your mind? If you've changed your mind, just don't do it anymore. Does that make sense? Not everyone needs to be in network marketing. If you decided it's not important to you anymore, don't do it. There's no problem, right? But unless you can tell me that it's not important, and you have to admit to yourself that this is still something that's got to happen, let's refocus. How about that? Right? So what you've got to have that conversation with people on the get-go, at the very beginning, right? So that you have the ability to help motivate them again on the back end. Okay? So next thing, we'll go into a little bit more of the creative process and what that looks like in organizations and how it plays out.